They laughed when I said his name, and that laughter stayed with me long after the room went quiet. It wasn't surprise or concern. It was mockery, clean and effortless, like they were certain they were right and I was just confused. A farmer, they said, like it explained everything, like it reduced my entire future to dirt under fingernails and a mistake I'd regret. They talked about wasted potential, about how I had thrown away everything they'd invested in me. My mother smiled thinly, the way she did when she wanted to appear kind while cutting deep. My father didn't even hide his disappointment. He joked about mud and tractors and asked how long it would take before I came crawling back. I didn't argue. I didn't defend him. I just stood there, realizing something I hadn't before, that their love had always been conditional. As long as my life made them look good, I mattered. The moment it didn't, I was disposable. I married him anyway. After that, I became a ghost in their world. Holidays passed without invitations. My calls went unanswered. When I did hear my name through relatives, it was followed by pity or quiet judgment. I was the example they used to warn others. The daughter who ruined her future. What they didn't see was our life. They didn't see him waking before dawn, steady and disciplined, never complaining. They didn't see how carefully he planned, how deeply he understood his land, how seriously he took every responsibility. They didn't see me beside him, learning, organizing, negotiating, turning hard work into structure and growth. We didn't live loudly. We lived deliberately. While my parents chased appearances and risky investments, we paid off equipment. We bought land piece by piece. We signed contracts that didn't look impressive on social media, but meant stability, reach, and control. We built something slow and solid, the kind of success that doesn't need validation. Years went by. Then the call came. My mother's voice was softer than I remembered, almost unfamiliar. She asked how I was doing, asked about my husband, said she missed me. Every word felt rehearsed, careful, like she was stepping around broken glass. Then she told me the truth. Their business had collapsed, the one they were so proud of, the one they'd brushed off my warnings about. Lawsuits had drained them, accounts were frozen. The bank was closing in. They needed help, and they needed it fast. They didn't apologize for the years of silence. They didn't acknowledge the ridicule. They spoke as if none of it mattered now, as if family erased history. My father finally said I'd probably done better than expected, and asked if we could help them get through this rough patch, better than expected. I looked around my home, at the quiet strength of the life we'd built, at the man they once mocked, calmly reviewing numbers at the table he'd built with his own hands. At myself, no longer chasing approval, no longer small. I told them I'd think about it. That night, my husband didn't tell me what to do. He just asked what I wanted, not what was polite, not what was expected, what I wanted. And for the first time, I didn't hesitate. We said no, not with anger, not with revenge in our voices, just a clear, steady refusal. We weren't comfortable risking everything we'd built. We weren't in a position to help. We wished them well. My mother cried. My father called me ungrateful. He said family doesn't abandon family, but they had already taught me what abandonment looked like. They didn't lose us when we refused to bail them out. They lost us years earlier, when they decided respect depended on status, and love depended on image. We didn't walk away feeling powerful. We walked away feeling free. And as their world fell apart, ours stayed standing, rooted in the very ground they once laughed at, strong enough to weather storms, and finally, undeniably, our own. The fallout didn't end with that call. Within days, relatives started reaching out, carefully at first, then with pressure disguised as concern. They told me my parents were embarrassed, that people were talking, that I should be the bigger person. They said things like, "Money changes people," and "Don't forget where you came from," as if I hadn't spent years remembering exactly where I came from. What they never asked was how it felt to be dismissed so easily. How it felt to be laughed at for loving someone honest. How it felt to be erased the moment my life stopped fitting their narrative. My parents tried again. This time my father came alone. He drove out to the farm in a car that no longer looked new, wearing shoes that sank into the dirt he once joked about. He stood awkwardly near the fence, eyes scanning the fields, calculating, not admiring, measuring. He told me they were running out of options, that creditors didn't care about pride, that mistakes had been made. He said my husband was a hard-working guy, like it was a discovery he'd just made. Still no apology, just urgency. I listened quietly. I didn't interrupt. I let the silence do the work for me. When he finished, I told him the truth he never expected to hear. That we didn't owe them anything. That help isn't something you demand after years of disrespect. That love doesn't suddenly appear when money is involved. He looked at me like I'd changed languages. He reminded me of everything they'd paid for when I was younger. Education, food, a roof. As if raising a child was a loan with interest. That's when something inside me finally settled. I told him we were doing well, but not because of luck. Because we made careful choices. Because we respected each other. Because we didn't gamble our future to impress strangers. And because we didn't look down on people who built things with their hands. I told him no again. He left without shouting, without drama, just quiet defeat. After that, the story changed. People stopped saying my parents were unlucky and started saying they were reckless. Old business partners distanced themselves. Friends who'd once filled their condo disappeared. The same society they'd valued so much moved on without them. And slowly, something ironic happened. People started noticing us. Distributors talked. Local news mentioned the farm. Our name became associated with reliability, quality, growth. Invitations came, not from family gatherings, but from rooms where decisions were made. One afternoon, I overheard someone describe my husband as the kind of man who builds wealth without noise. I smiled. Months later, I heard my parents had sold the condo. Downsized. Quietly. No farewell party. No announcements. Just another exit no one applauded. They never asked for money again. Sometimes I wonder if they ever understood what really happened. That this wasn't punishment. It wasn't revenge. It was simply consequence. They chose pride over people, image over integrity, and we chose peace. The farmer they mocked gave me a life rooted in respect. The daughter they dismissed became someone who no longer needed their approval. And in the end, the silence between us wasn't empty. It was earned. Time did what arguments never could. The noise around my parents faded. Their names stopped coming up in conversations, then stopped coming up at all. The urgency, the drama, the pressure, it all dissolved into quiet reality. Life moved forward, the way it always does, without pausing for anyone's pride. For a long time, I thought that would be the end of it. Then one evening, a letter arrived. Not a call. Not a message passed through relatives. A letter, handwritten. The kind that takes effort you only make when you've run out of easier options. My mother's handwriting was smaller than I remembered. The loops tighter, the confidence gone. She didn't ask for money. She didn't even ask to see me. She wrote about loneliness, about how quiet their days had become, about how success had once filled their calendar, and how now time stretched uncomfortably long. She wrote about watching other families celebrate milestones online, about realizing how many moments she'd missed. For the first time, she acknowledged my husband, by name. She said she used to think security came from status and savings accounts, from being admired by the right people. She admitted she'd been wrong. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just plainly, like someone stating a fact too late to fix. She ended the letter with a sentence that sat heavy in my hands. I don't know how to be your mother anymore, but I wish I had tried harder when it mattered. I didn't cry. I folded the letter and put it away. Some wounds don't bleed. They harden. I thought about writing back. I thought about driving into the city. I thought about reopening doors that had been locked for years. But I also thought about the cost of that. About the peace I had fought for. About the boundaries that had kept my life steady and safe. Forgiveness, I realized, doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it just means letting go of the need for validation. We didn't respond right away. Life was full. The farm was expanding again. New contracts, new responsibilities. The kind of busy that feels earned, not frantic. The kind that leaves you tired but proud. One morning, as the sun came up over the fields, my husband handed me a cup of coffee and asked what I was thinking about. I told him about the letter. He listened, like he always did, without judgment, without pushing. Then he said something simple. Whatever you choose, make sure it's for you, not for them. That was the moment I understood how far I'd come. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Not my success, not my worth, not my forgiveness. My parents had lost the power to define any of it. Whether they remained part of my life or not, the story was already complete. The girl they mocked had built a life stronger than their approval. The man they dismissed had become the foundation of everything solid I stood on. And for the first time, the future felt wide open, not as something to escape into, but as something to grow into, slowly, honestly, and on my own terms. A few weeks later, I finally wrote back. Not a long letter, not an emotional one, just a few lines, honest and careful. I thanked her for writing. I said I hoped they were healthy. I told her I needed time, and that whatever came next would have to be built slowly, with respect. I didn't promise visits. I didn't promise forgiveness. I didn't reopen old arguments. I sealed the envelope without shaking. When her reply came, it was different from before. Shorter, quieter. She said she understood. She said she hadn't understood much, for a long time, but she was learning. There were no expectations in her words, no requests, just acknowledgement. That was new. We didn't rush anything after that. Months passed between messages, sometimes longer. No phone calls, no sudden appearances. Just space, the kind that lets truth settle without being forced. During that time, our life kept growing. The farm expanded into processing, then into direct distribution. We hired people from the nearby town, people who worked the way my husband did. Steady, proud, unshowy. I watched him with them and understood why I had trusted him when everyone else laughed. He never needed to be loud to lead. One afternoon, a regional business journal ran a feature on sustainable agriculture. There was a photo of him in the field, sleeves rolled up, sun on his face. The caption called him a quiet force in modern farming. I didn't share it with my parents, not out of spite, out of closure. They didn't need proof anymore, and neither did I. Eventually, my father wrote too. His letter was awkward, stiff, clearly rewritten many times. He admitted he had confused control with guidance, image with success. He didn't ask to be forgiven. He just said he hoped I was happy. I was, not because they finally saw me, but because I no longer needed them to. If reconciliation ever happens, it will be slow and mutual, built on who we are now, not who they wanted me to be. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Some chapters don't need revisiting to be understood. The land keeps teaching me that. You plant carefully. You tend patiently. You don't force growth. And you accept that not every seed takes root, no matter how much you once wanted it to. The farmer they mocked gave me more than a life. He gave me perspective, strength, and the courage to choose peace over pride. And that choice, quietly and finally, changed everything. The first time I saw them again, It wasn't planned. We were at a small agricultural conference in a neighboring city, nothing flashy. Folding chairs, local vendors, practical conversations. My husband had been invited to speak about long-term land management, and I sat in the back, listening the way I always did, quietly proud. When I turned my head, I saw them, older, smaller somehow. Standing near the entrance, unsure whether to come in or leave. They hadn't known he would be speaking. They hadn't known we would be there. For a moment, I wondered if I should look away. I didn't. They listened. Really listened. No smirks. No whispered jokes. Just attention. My father nodded at points I recognized from years of experience. My mother held her hands together, tense but focused. When it ended, they waited. That alone told me everything had changed. The conversation was brief, awkward, polite. They congratulated him, not me. Not as a performance, but as recognition. My husband thanked them, steady and respectful, the same way he treated everyone. No past was dragged into the room. No apologies were demanded. No victories were claimed. We spoke about the weather, about the drive, about nothing important at all. And yet, it felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. They didn't ask for money. They didn't ask for help. They didn't ask for anything. Before leaving, my mother said quietly that she was glad I looked well. My father hesitated, then said he was proud of the work being done. Not proud of us, of the work. And that was enough. As they walked away, I didn't feel relief or triumph. I felt acceptance, the kind that comes when you stop needing a different ending and allow the real one to exist. On the drive home, my husband reached for my hand. He didn't ask how I felt. He already knew. Some people come back into your life not to reclaim a place, but to acknowledge the one you built without them. The land rolled past the window, wide and patient, unchanged by any of it. And I understood then that this wasn't a story about revenge at all. It was about choosing dignity when others choose pride, about building quietly while being underestimated, about becoming someone so grounded that even the past can't shake you. We went home to our fields, our people, our life, and nothing followed us there. After that day, something subtle shifted. There were no dramatic reunions, no sudden family dinners, no attempts to reclaim what had been lost. Instead, there was distance with understanding, and silence without hostility. The kind of quiet that no longer feels heavy. Occasionally, a message would arrive, a short update, a question about the harvest. Once, my mother asked if the weather had been as unpredictable for us as it had been in the city. It wasn't small talk, meant to fill space. It was effort, careful and restrained. I answered when I could, briefly, honestly. I didn't offer more than I was ready to give. Life on the farm kept moving forward, indifferent to personal history. Seasons came and went. We faced setbacks, learned, adjusted. Success didn't arrive all at once. It layered itself slowly, the way real stability always does. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun sink into the fields, my husband said something I hadn't realized yet. They don't look down on us anymore. He wasn't bitter, just observant. I nodded because it was true. But I also knew something else. Even if they did, it wouldn't matter now. The weight of their opinion had finally lifted, and I hadn't noticed exactly when it happened. I thought about the younger version of myself, the one standing in a room full of laughter, trying to decide whether love was worth the cost. I wished I could tell her that the cost was real, but the return was greater. That choosing integrity over approval feels lonely at first, but it builds a life that doesn't collapse when applause disappears. We were invited to speak together at another event months later. Not about success, about resilience, about choosing long-term value over short-term validation. The room was filled with people who had been underestimated, dismissed, overlooked. I told them what I had learned, that respect can't be negotiated, that dignity grows where ego fails, that sometimes the people who doubt you the loudest become the quietest witnesses to your growth. When the applause came, it felt distant, almost unnecessary. I wasn't chasing it anymore. That night, as we drove back through dark roads and open land, I realized the story had come full circle. My parents didn't need to be punished. They didn't need to be saved. They didn't need to be convinced. Life had taught everyone what they were willing to learn. And we returned to the place that had always told the truth. The soil, steady and unforgiving, rewarding only what was patiently, humbly earned. That was the real ending, not victory, peace. Years later, when people asked how we did it, I never knew which part they meant. How we built a life from work most people dismissed. How we stayed steady when we were underestimated. Or how we learned to live without needing approval from the people who raised us. The truth was, it wasn't one decision. It was hundreds of small ones. Choosing patience over pride. Choosing consistency over display. Choosing each other when it would have been easier to choose comfort. My parents aged quietly. We exchanged messages on birthdays, occasionally on holidays. There was kindness, but no pretending the past hadn't happened. We had found a balance that didn't reopen wounds or erase truth. One spring, my mother sent a photo. It was an old picture of me as a child, sitting on the steps of their house, holding a potted plant I'd grown in school. I barely remembered it. She wrote that she'd found it while cleaning and realized she'd missed who I had always been. I stared at that image for a long time. Even then, I'd been growing things. I wrote back and thanked her. Nothing more. Nothing less. That summer, a storm hit the region hard. Fields flooded. Roads closed. We lost part of the crop. It was the kind of setback that tests everything you've built. My husband and I worked through it side by side, recalculating, repairing, trusting the systems we'd put in place. We didn't panic, because we had learned something important long ago. Stability isn't the absence of loss. It's the ability to stand after it. When the season ended, we were still here. Still standing. Still growing. One evening, as the sky cleared and the land settled back into itself, I understood the final truth of it all. The people who laughed at us never got the last word. The work did, and the life we built, quiet, grounded, unremarkable to outsiders but unshakable to us, was never meant to prove anyone wrong. It was meant to be lived. That was the only ending that ever mattered.